guys, welcome to episode 24 of my Mortal Realms review series, in which we'll be reviewing Mortal Realms issue 24 in a move that surprises no one. Right, let's get to it and look at the plastic. You've got quite a bit in this week's issue. What have we got? Let's see. We've got 5 glaive wraiths, 3 of these guys with scythes, which I'm not sure what they are, so I'm actually going to look it up in here, because ironically it has it in here. Grimghast Reapers, so we've got what, 1, let's see, this 1, 2, 3 Grimghast Reapers and 1 Lord Executioner. On 1 fairly chunky sprue, which Julia advises me she's looking forward to building immensely. And this guy with the axe looks fantastic, and the smoke coming off of it. You've got this guy, that's not a candle, there's actually a bell that goes on it. Yeah, you've got a fantastic amount of detail here. It's from a, where are we? 2018's copyright, which means these guys they're 2 years old at most, so they're really good in that respect. Same problem you always have with any of the Nighthorn stuff. The models themselves are going to be quite delicate, so be careful when cutting them out. But the detail is just fantastic. Nice deep detail. It's going to take paint really well. You're going to be able to do a lot of stuff on it without any risk of overcrowding or overwhelming the detail with paint. So that's pretty good. Did my best to find a price on these. Nearest I can realistically find is the Tempest of Souls box set. I think that's what it's called, which is £50. And this looks like maybe 1 out of 4 sprues. It doesn't show you on GW's website. Sometimes they show you the sprues, sometimes they don't. Which means this sprue could be argued to be worth £12.50, because that's what you mostly spend on it. So you mostly buy for the models. There are some books which are cool in there. A little battle mat and some other cardboard drum and some dice. I don't think really anybody cares that much about the dice or the cardboard drum. Some people do. So, you know, in theory, you're looking about £12.50. If you break it down to individual models, or rather individual purchases, which is what I usually do, you're looking at about £10 for the glaive wraith stalkers. You've got about 3 of the sidey dudes. They come in a box at about £27, which you get like 10 of ish. So, you know, that's probably worth £10 to £12 in theory by itself. And you've got the Lord Executioner, who is an independent character, and those guys can retail from anywhere as low as 16 to as high as 25. If we were to say this was an 18 to £20 one, you'd be making a massive saving on all of those individually. If you're just counting as part of the box set, which, like I say, is what it looks to be, you're looking maybe £10 to £12 worth of stuff. You know, hard to judge in terms of what you place most value on. You know, I don't think anyone cares that much about getting 6 extra dice and a paper range ruler. Some people do really like the books and find them to be the best part. But either way, at $7.99, you're still making a significant saving. So that's good. Obviously, we've got bases, vitally important and the best part of any magazine. We've got a lot of slaughter bases, which is nice. I really do. Whoa, gee whiz. That broke. I really do prefer these guys to have slaughter bases. It may not seem amazingly important in the grand scheme of things, but with delicate models, the slots are a much better way of holding it on the model. If you've got to glue it on by feet or wisps of smoke, you've usually got really small areas of contact for the glue to work on, and that just leaves you with a model that's going to fall apart before you get to play with it, if you're transporting it anywhere. You know, I remember the old skeleton armies, which used to get, was it 30 man or 40 man? units of skeletons. You used to get big box sets of skeletons, and there were dozens of them in there. And everyone thought it was great because you could build a really good army for really cheaply. It was a horde army, and GW, knew you needed a ton of them, but it gave you a lot of fun models. But there was, whenever you played any sort of friendly tournament or even just friendly games, there was the slightly sad sight of all the undead players basically performing plastic glue necromancy on all their skeletal models before every game. You'd be setting yours up and they'd be setting theirs up and they're going, and having to glue one together and then putting it to the side, setting a bunch more up, glue one together, put it to the side. And then by the time they finished setting up, the plastic glue had dried and they were very delicately placing those little extra models that they'd had to repair back into the things. I can't really complain. I played Bretonians, and there was a similar situation with the Bretonian lances because they all had lances. If you weren't careful, you'd spend half your time gluing the lances back together, which led to a lot of people completely replacing their lances with brass rods. Didn't look as cool because it didn't have the detail, but literally they get brass rods and they'd file it to a point and they stick it in. It was quite nasty if you fell over them. People would get them stuck in their hands, but it was better than having no lances on. Anyway, like I say, fantastic model, really looking good. Issue 1, signed by Ian, the Dark Lord, as always. Straight into it, you've got the Lord Executioner. There is no honour in your soul, and there shall be no redemption. That's apparently from the spirit of Andros the Black. In the living world, there are many executioners tasked with ending the lives of the guilty. Sorry. Often by axe, stroke, or at the end of a noose. Among these executioners are those that knowingly slay the innocent and claim they are just doing their duty. These mortals are likely to attract the attention of Nagash. Anyway, I assume he does that properly, and it's Nagash. It goes on to describe Lord Executioners, basically what they are. They are literally executioners. They've taken a lot of dead people, therefore their souls are particularly nasty. They've often, they've not cared about guilt or innocence, or knowingly killed the innocent. And so at their death they get cursed. Cursed by Nagash. Got a lovely picture here of the Lord Executioner. Breaking it down into parts. Obviously you've got the gallows, which is what he hangs them with. You've got the hangman's noose, which is what they hang by. The executioner's hood. For those of you who aren't familiar, I can't imagine there's anybody playing that isn't familiar with some of the medieval stuff. Executioners used to wear hoods so that nobody knew who they were, so that no one could take revenge on their families. This is something that goes all the way back to medieval times. It was a really weird job. You could bribe executioners to do things like sharpen their axes and stuff like that, because often it was meant to be a punishment, and the nobles handing out the punishment wanted you to suffer. But if you were rich or well off, you could pay the executioner to sharpen the axe to make sure that you suffered minimally. It's very weird culture. And because nobody knew who they were, you could be shaking hands with the bloke that killed your brother. Obviously, there were other ways, and people could be bribed to find out who the executioners were and things like that. But, as far as anyone was concerned, the Lord Executioner was just a black face mask, either black cloth, sometimes leather. But, an anonymous figure. The executioner's identity was once disguised as the hood, which he now wears for all eternity. A decapitating great axe, which is literally what you can see there. It's a massive axe. The whole point of the axe is there where you weren't dependent on the strength of the executioner to kill you. All he had to do was lift the axe up and it would come down and slice through your head. It didn't always work. As a matter of fact, it often didn't work. A slight waver or a slight angle, and it could take a couple of blows to take someone's head off, and they would be aware of the whole thing, which is strangely enough why they invented the guillotine. It's seen as a horror of the French Revolution, but it was designed to be more merciful than an executioner's axe. It was designed to be a headsman that would kill you first time every time, which is a weird thing. A weapon of mass killing that's meant to be nice. Like I say, there's loads of weird cultural stuff about death penalties and that. That's before you get to the moral stuff of it, the weird little conventions and attempts by people to be merciful whilst being horrific. There's whole swathes of it. Even today, if you look at the modern ways in which people are executed, they're weirdly horrific. People seem to take a lot of effort to try and make them nice, and yet they're weirdly horrific. It's like in America, the chemicals they use aren't approved by doctors and have weird effects. Like there's 2 chemicals pumped into somebody before they get executed by lethal injection. One of them is supposed to knock you out, and the other is supposed to be a paralytic. But the one that's supposed to knock you out, so you're not aware of it, doesn't always work, whereas the paralytic always does. So you have people who are completely stock still, and you think they're unconscious, and then they have the execution drug poured in them, which is a horrific drug, which basically makes you feel like you're burning alive for quite a bit before it kills you. And it's these whole weird things. They went to doctors to get it done, but the doctors refused to sign off on anything like that. They just wouldn't be involved in it because they're doctors. So they end up doing things like getting MEs to help them out, and even the ME that helped them design that process is going, I don't think this is a great process, guys. I think you should get somebody proper to do it. I'm like, no, it'll be fine. Some of the American prisons will have an executioner like that who's an anonymous character who'll just turn a key, and that's his whole job. That's all he does. And so he takes all the he does all the guilt. Other ones, it'll be the prison warden and 2 other guards, and they'll all 3 turn the key. But whichever key is the actual one that activates it is randomized, so none of them know which one of them did it, and they can all kind of get away with it. It was a similar way with firing squads. If you had 5 guys in a firing squad, you'd have anywhere between 1 and 3 of them actually having a loaded rifle, and they didn't load their rifles. So again, none of them knew which one of them did it, so that they could all kind of sleep at night pretending the other guy did it. It's a really, really complex history. Behind executioners is quite mad. Then you've got disembodied skulls. The skulls of the Lord Executioner's victims both protect and berate the killer. So they're there flying around him and protecting him from harm. At the same time, going, "You're a bad man." Of course, he's leaving the fog trails, which are described as ethereal mist. So that's quite a nasty character there. Next, we've got the Grimghast Reapers, who are the guys with the scythes, which are really nice. I've seen a couple of people describe the glaive wraiths as having scythes, but they don't. When it's sticking out on the end like that, it's a glaive, which is basically a kind of half halberd, half sword, kind of thing. It's just a big blade with a stick on the end. An actual scythe is the side bit, and whilst you could get ones with slightly straighter bits like that, that is actually pretty straight for a scythe. Most scythes were very bendy because they weren't designed to be wielded like that, but rather you had handles and you went in like that because they weren't for killing people. They were for harvesting wheat. So they were literally designed for you to be able to hold it there, and it would swoop down in a big swoop so that it was lower than you, so that you could stand up and just do that all day without basically breaking your back, because in the olden days, manual labour was pretty intense, and if you had something that broke your back when you used it, you couldn't use it. There was no, I'll just put up with it for a few hours until the end of the shift. There was, I can't, there was, ow, no, I can't mow a field, or I can't harvest a field with this because I couldn't make it to the end of it without never being able to do it again. And as harsh as those times were, they were put up with the human machine. Either you had to make allowances for it, or you had to work your people to death. And obviously we know sometimes they did that. But anyway, the Grimghast, Grimghast Reapers are formed from the souls of those who murdered their rivals, without getting blood on their own hands. In death they have been cursed to slay Nagash's enemies in the most brutal fashion, staining their hands with red blood. Next we've got a note from Tarlak Malthar, entitled The Blind Geists. In the foothills beneath the Diathic Mons of Styx, I was unfortunate enough to find myself caught up in a battle against the Night Haunts. While I can recount no heroics of my own, the battle will never fade from my memory, for I witnessed with my own eyes the charge of the Grimghast Reapers. They swept across the land, the barren land, in a blind fury, scythes slashing wildly. Our pikemen had nowhere to flee. The unseeing spirits crashed into them, and the living fell like a weald of wheat at harvest. The Geists emerged from the fray, sticky with blood, and their maddening cries spreading panic throughout ranks. We were fortunate indeed to win that day, though the cost was great. I'm experimenting with weird voices. If you find it cringeworthy, make a note in the comment and I'll do it more. It then goes on to describe what they were and how they became what they were in a bit more detail. But I won't spoil that for you. And next we've got the Death Knell, or the Death Knells. The champions of the Grimghast Reapers are extollers of Shyish. Once spiritual leaders who spoke out against Nagash, they now bear death knells. When these bells strike flesh, they can shake a mortal soul loose from its body. Maybe a bit like Doctor Strange. And it's got a few characters there. You've got Tynak the Shepherd, Arkist Ram, and Mordir Ilax. Tarkin the Shepherd was once an outspoken priest of Sigmar. Arkist Ram was a poisoner. And Mordir Ilax was once an Arc Lector who employed thieves and assassins. So that's pretty cool. And then it goes on to describe sanctified shrouds. The Grimghast Reapers are blindfolded with sanctified shrouds. The holy power contained within these thin strips of cloth utterly blocks out the Geist's sense of sight. Sif, get away from that. Sorry, my dog's nicking the cat's biscuits. Most Nighthaunt spirits possess sight which allows them to see magical auras and other spirits in the air around them. Even this vision is denied to the Grimghast Reapers. All they can do is swing their scythes and press forward in the knowledge that eventually the blood of the foe will cover their hands. Basically, they can't see, they follow the bell. They have to just basically swing and swing and swing, and they keep following the extollers, the death knells. Those guys don't wear a blindfold. They ring their bell. It not only peels living souls from flesh, but it provides an audible beacon for the rest of their cursed allies. I wonder if there's some way of using that against them. Oh well. Next, moves on to Giran. Some beautiful artwork there. Giran is the realm of life. While much of it has been corrupted by the vile followers of Nurgle, many mortals still make their homes there. Some of the greatest cities in all the realms are in the Jade Kingdom. Yeah, Giran is one of the biggest sort of battlefields in the Age of Sigmar because it's a realm that was completely lost. The Wood Elves ran away, never to be forgiven, and the no, my brain just failed when I want to say plant people, but my brain has completely failed on plant people. Anyway, the Dryads, the Naiads, and all those ones, the Sylvans, thank you, went into kind of a hibernation. It's not until Sigmar came out and his forces woke them up, got them back up, helped them get their queen back up and back into the fight, that they started to take back the realm, with Sigmar's forces offering a lot of military support, which ironically means that, you know, the things that used to work most with the elves now work really well with the humans, and according to the background lore, they hate the elves because the elves ran away. It's one of those things where you look at it and you realise that it's a completely unreasonable situation, because they had the ability to hide, but they kind of expected the elves to stay there and fight onto the death whilst they were going to, and then once all the elves were dead, they'd hide. It's not a reasonable fear at all, but it's what they expected. We've got some descriptions here of Hammerhall, Giran. Hammerhall is a city that spans two realms, Giran and Akshi. The city's been constructed on either side of a realm gate. A large number of elven nomads make temporary homes in Hammerhall. Particularly it's going to be particularly the wood elves who want to come back to their home but kind of can't. It's really important because obviously the Sylvan and their queen Ilaria are probably one of Sigmar's most powerful allies. So that gate is one of the most important gates in the realms. Hence, it's in the middle of a city, which covers it from every blooming direction on two different realms. You would have to destroy hundreds, if not thousands, of warriors to get access to that gate, and then go through to the other side of the gate and do it all over again. It would be particularly difficult, and knowing that if you just attacked one side of the gate, Sigmar could pour in reinforcements into the other side of the city and just march them through the other side of the gate pretty continuously, meaning that laying siege to it would be exceptionally difficult, and you'd have to run two simultaneous sieges in two different realms if you wanted to conquer it at all. So that's pretty cool and pretty impressive. Next, we've got the Living City, raised by, sorry, not Ariel, Alariel. Ariel's a little mermaid. Raised by Alariel herself, the Living City is a bastion of nature. Its walls made from living fauna. Sylvaneth live alongside mortals and the Hallowed Knights, Great Stormkeep. The city, the Oakenspire Towers, I'll try that again. And the Hallowed Knights, Great Stormkeep, the Oakenspire, towers over the city. And it's basically grown trees and the like. So it's a city that's kind of organic in nature and has been grown from sort of trees and resin. But it's created from what? Which that would make, sorry, my brain just had a random thought. You could run an Age of Sigmar Space Hulk game against Dark Sylvans or something, using one of these cities and maybe some Nurgle stuff. You could totally run AOS Space Hulk. Next, you've got the Greywater Fastness, which is kind of a thorn in the side of the realm of life. It's a city of technological progress. The people of Greywater Fastness must contend with clouds of smog, and the pollution angers the Sylvaneth, who have clashed with the city's armies. Basically, they set themselves up there when the Sylvaneth were at their weakest. They trimmed all the forest back. It's a dwarf and man city, but it's mostly kind of like one of the dwarven cities. They manufacture a lot of the best weaponry there, and they use the trees to keep the fires going all the time. There's a massive cordon around the city where it's always cut clean. Every tree that grows is cut down. And at the edge of that cordon, it's said that at night you can see Sylvaneth eyes glowing in the dark, and at daytimes you can see things flitting throughout the trees. So they don't ever go out armed. Apparently they have tried to take the city down. The Sylvaneth have tried to take the city down a couple of times, but it is a city that is basically built on weapons manufacturing. So they've managed to hold their ground all the time, something which upsets the Sylvaneth greatly. We've got another bit here that goes on to describe the people of Giran, and most of them living in concert with nature and working with Giran's seasons and things like that. Because, well, the trees can come alive, so if you cut down the wrong ones, you're in trouble. And then it covers the cosmology. As all the mortal realms bar Shayesh, the magic of Giran is the most powerful at the outer edge of the realm. nearer the etheric void that separates each part of the realms. Venturing into these areas is unwise. In the central area of the realms, such as the Everspring Swathe, the forests often appear to be as ordered as gardens, but the further one ventures to the edge, the more wild things grow, so that's pretty awesome. Next, we've got the instructions on how to build night builds with our little box on clipper safety. Do be careful with clippers. One slip and you could literally take off an entire arm. In case anyone thinks I'm serious about that, I'm not. Sorry, just dropped one of the pages. Again, we've got all the instructions here on how to build all the separate models, just so it's easy. And we go straight on to the paints. It's currently recommending Corax White, Nihilak Oxide, Cantor Blue, Corn Red, Dryad Bark, Lead Belcher and Rakarth Flesh as the colours you need. As always, it's doing the initial base coat of white and then kind of a wash over with Nihilak Oxide, then a dry brush back with white, which is fairly cool. And again, it's following the same colours as all the previous ones. Cloaks in blue, metal in chainmail in metallic colours, and edging in red. Personally, I think you're missing a trick if you don't cover God, my brain. If you don't cover the Grimghast Reapers in blood, but that's up to you. There's some gorgeous pictures of that in there. Okay, next we have the stats of the Lord Executioner, which I shall just go through for you guys. You've got movement 6, wounds 5, 4+ save, and a bravery of 10, which is entirely respectable. That's a good move for an infantry. 5 wounds is respectable. 4+ save is literally an average save. And 10 bravery is very solid and what you'd expect from a creature that is completely dead. What do we got? Weapon-wise, we're equipped with 1 melee weapon, the Decapitating Great Axe. Does what it says on the tin. It's got a range of 1, which I kind of think is a bit short for an axe that big. 3 attacks, which is a good solid number of attacks. To hit 3+, and to wound 3+. Again, that's fairly solid. Followed by a render -2 and a damage of 1. So you're looking at doing 3 attacks. If you do right, you're looking at doing a good number of wounds, and 1 damage per wound. Rules-wise, obviously we got the basic description. This model is a single model with a Decapitating Great Axe. This model can fly. This model has Beheading Strike. And if the unmodified wound roll for an attack made with the Decapitating Great Axe is 6, add 2 damage to the characteristic of that weapon for the attack. I'm going to reread that. Add 2 to the damage for the characteristic, which means the characteristic is 1. You're adding 2, which means your total damage for that attack, for any attack that rolls 6, is 3, giving it a potential for 9 wounds. So that's very respectable. Admittedly, the chance of you getting those 9 wounds, once you've got +3 + to hit, +3 + to wound, and it's a 6, is fairly low. But it's a possibility, and if it happens, it's going to be very unpleasant for your opponent. It's ethereal, obviously, ignoring modifiers, both positive and negative, when making save rolls for attacks against this model. It has the Staring Death in the Face ability. At the start of the combat phase, you can pick an enemy hero within 3 inches of this model. Subtract 1 from the hit rolls for attacks made by that hero in the combat phase. And it just says the hit rolls. It doesn't say against this model, just any model that is a hero within 3 inches of that model. So you can use that to defend your Lord Executioner, or you can use that to defend other models. So that's pretty cool. Finally, you've got Disembodied Skulls. The spirits that swirl around the Lord Executioner preserve his existence from threats. Roll a d6 for each time you allocate a mortal wound to this model. On a 5+, that wound is negated. So basically on a 5+, one of the skulls comes in and I'm guessing gets mortally killed. But I'm guessing he has being as he's killed a lot of innocents, I'm guessing he has a near infinite supply of skulls to use. Certainly enough to last in the battle. Okay, what have we got next? Okay, it goes to the Lord of Executioner's ability again. In this page, going through them in through examples. I'm not going to read that because it's just going what I just read you. Next, we have the Grimghasts, which are wounds 1, move 8, which is a very good move, particularly for infantry. Save 4+, and bravery 10. So solid save, very fast unit. These guys have 2 weapons in the unit, depending on who you are, or on which one in the unit you are. You've got the Scythe Slasher, which goes for the Grimghasts, and the Death Knell, which goes for the doodads. I've forgotten their names already. Yeah, which is used by the Extollers of Shyish, which are part of the unit, basically champions, if you will. But they're all running with the same profile. The Slasher Scythes have a range of 2. 2 attacks. To hit a 4+, to wound a 3+, a -1 on the rend and 1 damage. The Death Knell has a range of 2, 1 attack, a hit on a 3+, to wound on a 3+, -1 rend and 2 damage. Meaning on average both of them can do 2 damage. You're more likely to do 2 damage with that Death Knell because of the bonus on to hit, but there you go. Description, any number of models, each armed with a Slasher Scythe. The leader of this unit is an Extoller of Shyish. An Extoller of Shyish is armed with a Death Knell instead of a Slasher Scythe. Obviously, this unit can fly. Abilities, we've got Ethereal, which ignores modifiers both positive and negative when making save rolls, as we're aware. We've got Reaped Like Corn, which is corn with a C, not a KH. You can reroll failed to hit rolls for attacks made with this unit's Slasher Scythes if the target has 5 or more models left. Basically, because they just come around in a massive arc. If you've got a load of models, it's more likely they'll hit somebody, so they get a reroll. And then we've got For Whom the Bell Tolls. Allocate wounds inflicted by a Death Knell after allocating wounds inflicted by Slasher Scythes. For each enemy model that is slain by wounds inflicted by a Death Knell, you can inflict 1 mortal wound on an enemy within 3 inches of the model's arm with a Death Knell. So first you go with the Slasher Scythes, and if they weaken the unit and then the Death Knell kills it, it gets it. Or if the Death Knell kills a so where are we? For each enemy model, for each the Death Knells can weaken it. The Slasher Scythes can weaken a model first, and then if it's killed by the Death Knell, you get an extra mortal wound to an enemy at 3 inches, which is going to be really good against your Stormcast Eternals, because it means your Grimghasts can go in with their scythes, do a lot of hits and weaken guys. And if you've got a Stormcast guy with 1 wound left, you allocate that Death Knell wound to it from your Extoller. You then get to throw another mortal wound against another model within 3 inches, which against units, against the unit, unless you wipe the whole unit out, it means you're going to get an additional unsavable wound on that unit, which is pretty good. Is going to add up to help thin out units, particularly if for whatever reason those wounds get spread out. Again, it goes through examples, playthroughs. That's what I'm looking for, of Grimghast abilities. So that's pretty cool. And then we've got a War Scroll for Castigators, which I believe we already had, but this one probably has more stuff in it. Wounds 2, move 5, save 4, bravery 7. Thunderhead Greatbows with range 18, 1 attack, to hit 3+, to wound 3+, -1 rend and 1 damage. Then you've got the Heavy Stock, which involves hitting it with the back end of your Thunderhead Greatbow, which has a range of 1 inch, 2 attacks, 4+ to hit, 4+ to wound, no rend and 1 damage. Obviously not a weapon you're going to want to use, but better than nothing in a pinch. Obviously, Cascade is made up of any number of models, each armed with a Thunderhead Great Bow and a heavy stock. The leader of this unit is a Cascade Prime. Add 1 to hit rolls. Sorry, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made with the Cascade Prime's Thunderhead Great Bow. So he still only gets to fire 1 shot, but it's got a 2+ to hit, which is nice. Obviously, the abilities are Burst of Celestial Energy. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a Thunderhead Great Bow that targets a demon or Nighthaunt unit is 6, that attack inflicts D3 hits on the target. Instead of 1, make a wound and save roll for each hit. Then you've got the Castigator Etheric Channeling. At the start of the shooting phase, you must say if this unit will increase the accuracy or power of their Thunderhead Great Bow. If you choose accuracy, re-roll hits for 1 attacks of 1 for attacks made by this unit. If you choose power, the Thunderhead Great Bows have a Ren characteristic of -2 instead of -1. Both of those are very useful. Worth noting that you're adding +1 to the hit roll, giving you a 2+ hit roll. If you've got something else which adds another +1 to the hit roll, it does still count, giving you effectively 1+ to hit, but you still fail on a 1 because everything fails on a 1. It's primarily there for what I call for the math, which is if you've got +2 from, say, a magic, if you've got +1 from a magic ability and +1 from him being Castigator Prime, and then you've got -1 for cover, you're still hitting on a 2+, because you can go to +1 and you can even go to -1 if you have enough bonuses stacking up, but a 1 always fails. Now, if you were to go to, say, a -3 to hit because you have that many bonuses stacking up, a 1 would still fail. You'd still be rolling 2+ to actually hit. But the numbers, to my knowledge, and again, if I get a rule wrong, please feel free to correct me. I'm learning as much as you guys are. To my knowledge, the bonuses still count in terms of stacking positive and negative bonuses. If you have +2 and -3, you'd be at a 4+. If you had +3 and -2, you'd still be at a 2+. That's basically the math. They counteract each other. I believe you can only, I don't think, actually I'm not sure if they do. I'm trying to think if it's 8th ed or this one where they only stack once. You can only modify it. You can only modify it and then counter modify it once. I'm not sure. I might be wrong on that. But either way, no matter how many positive or negative modifiers you get, you still always hit on a 1. You still always miss on a 1. You still always hit on a 6. So, your enemy can put minus modifiers through the floor or plus modifiers through the roof. You've always got a chance of failing. They only work to a certain extent. And you've always got a chance of succeeding, which is nice. Again, it goes through the, I've got the little bit here, which is little playthroughs to help you understand the rules a little better, but I'm pretty sure you understood what I said. We've got a nice little story here called The Spectral Headsman. A little more introduction to the Lord Executioner. Then we've got the battle plan. This one is Battle in the Forest. Lord Executioner has risen to attack the Stormcast Eternals and slay the Night Quester. A duel between the two heroes may well decide the outcome of this battle. Lay out your battle mat, gather your dice, range rules and tokens. Make sure you have the rules and reference sheet 1 and your war scrolls to hand. Choose who will be the Stormcast player and who will be the Nighthaunt player, and then set it up as shown on the page, which basically they're still going end on battle. So you've got your Stormcast on the end with the lightning and your Nighthaunt on the end with the skulls. The armies in this battle are going to be a Lord Executioner, 9 Glaive Wraith Stalkers, which is a good number, 4 Grimghast Reapers, which is all you have, Night Questor, 5 Castigators and 1 Prosecutor, which is why they've made sure to give you the rules. So basically you've got 1 badass champion on foot, 1 badass champion that can fly, and 5 guys that can kill guys at range. So your challenge here is very much going to be getting people across the board. Obviously, set up, the players alternate setting up units one at a time. You've both got 3 units, so that'll still go. The Stormcast player must be wholly set up within their territory. The Nighthorn player must be wholly set up within their territory. And again, the terrain is having no effect on the battle map. Nighthorn player has first turn, which is probably necessary with all those crossbows on the field. Thunderhead greatbows on the field. Otherwise, nobody gets you. And then it says follow reference sheet 1, battle plan A, Giran 1 to play through the game. The game ends when no models are left on the battlefield, which is pretty much how they've been running it as standard so far. It'll be interesting to see if they do any other things. And it'll be cool. Right, last now to the back page. Where have we got? Issue 25 is going to be bringing you Balthazar Gold, which is a nice dirty bronze colour, and Agrax Earthshade, which is liquid skill. I kid you not, you will love this stuff. One thing I will point out is GW's washes have a good pigment content, so you can even dilute them down. You know, you can get away with 50-50, a third dilution, 50-50 dilution, or even 2/3 dilution, and still have a usable product. It gives different effects, so it depends what you want, but I totally encourage you, you've got little test pieces to try on, give it a try, see what the effects are, because sometimes you can get away with using less of it, and it is the reason they come in bigger pots is because the washes like a non-on and Agrax Earthshades are probably the thing you use most. You know, even more than white base coats, you use these washes on pretty much everything, because the right wash on the right model will save you a ton of time. Agrax is what I'm using on my Stormcast Eternals, on all their gold, and non-oil on all their metallic. Now I've chosen on all their gunmetal. I've chosen a gunmetal silver colour because I'm going for a different bunch of guys. But I'm working through a ton of I've worked through a ton of non-oil to the point where I basically had to make a new black wash from scratch during COVID-19. So I'll just show you, I think, to wash these guys, because I had no black wash and there was no black wash available. I literally had to make it from scratch. It turned out quite well, but not as good as the stuff you get from professionals, obviously. In issue 25, we are covering Discover Nurgle the Plague God, which is awesome. Agrax, Earthshade, and Balthazar Gold, and rules for magic in your game. So you're not getting much model-wise or saving much money-wise, but the magic rules are one of the best parts of fantasy games. Otherwise, you might as well just be playing Napoleonic Warfare. Napoleonic models tend to be Napoleonic and real warfare models tend to actually be very cheap. They don't tend to be as cool looking. They tend to be smaller and don't tend to have quite as much detail. But for the price of the stuff we bought, for the price of just the magazines we bought already, you could have a full army from someone like Bolt Action, and they're not the cheapest one. You can get guys like Victrix. You can get hundreds of these models, for almost pennies. So if you're into that stuff, Victrix miniatures, Bolt Action, fantastic manufacturers. The company's called Bolt Action, but they also do Black Powder. They do Celtic battles, and you can order from them. You can order them from almost all good distributors, because they have very low order limits. When you buy something from somebody, you have to order a certain amount before free post. You have to order a certain amount before they give you free postage. Bolt Actions isn't too bad, meaning you can, and World War II games are pretty popular, meaning they're actually pretty easy to order from almost any local distributor. I think they have just like they're not too expensive at all. And they're very friendly, and they supply a lot of their guys to other distributors so that they can be ordered in directly. So they're very cheaply available if you like that kind of thing. I totally recommend looking at the historical stuff if that's your thing, because it's a lot of fun. There are a lot of different things you can do, and there's a lot of weird stuff you can do with it. up to and including diesel punk games and steampunk games, because there are a lot of them that are designed to interact fairly straightforwardly with the models. There was a Clockwork Goblin or something like that. There was a weird game came out a few years ago, which was basically which was almost seemed to be meant to bolt on to bolt action. As you want to use weird units, here's rules for the weird units. From what I understand, it didn't quite bolt on because you had to have a bit of a repointing just to allow for costs and that, and things to be balanced with a whole slew of new units, but it was quite good. Then week after that, we got issue 26 with Azurite Runes, your first Realm of Life terrain kit. Yes, it looks like the other stuff, but it has got, I don't know what's a Realm of Life terrain kit. It looks awesome, and it does look a bit like the runes we already have, but it says here it's a Realm of Life terrain kit, so maybe there's plants on it that I'm not seeing. Still, some fantastic terrain, and if it's anything like the terrain we already got, it's going to be fantastic quality. And for issue 26, they're going to be covering the Azurite Ruin, obviously. Discover the Sylvaneth, who are pretty awesome. I totally checked those guys out. Add terrain rules to your game. So we've got a couple of bits of terrain already, and we've got another bit of terrain coming in 2 weeks' time, and some rules to add it to your game to increase your game and give you stuff to work out. You might find that you should find that actually adds a whole nother layer to your game. As it is, you're currently just walking down a straight field, kicking the crap out of each other as you go, or when you get there. Now you've got the ability, this will give you more of an ability to hide and maneuver. If we get to the maps where they're using both of the battle mats they've given us, it'll give you a lot more ability to maneuver around as well. And then when you add the terrain on that, you'll get even more ability to flank, outflank, charge, hide, and things like that. This one's taken a bit of a long time. Sorry, I got off on a bit of a blather. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next week. Hi guys, if you liked what you saw there, please remember to like and subscribe, and share with your friends, any platform you like, Instagram, Facebook, Pornhub, and thank you very much for watching the videos.